Welcome to Module 2, Teaching for Critical Thinking. Teaching for Critical Thinking builds on the foundation of critical thinking and expands to address key practices and teaching methods which influence the development of critical thinking in students. For this module, you will listen and view the presentation, complete readings or other assignments as instructed during the presentation, perform an activity, and complete the quiz. Please make sure to have your Critical Thinking Competency Standards book available. At the end of this module, you will be able to integrate key strategies for how to teach students to think critically, identify and use the universal standards of critical thinking, how to apply these concepts to your instruction and creation of the scenario, and personal challenges related to these skills. We are starting with one word, intentionality. Critical thinking instruction does not just happen. The embedded elements that are included in assignments or specific target words used in learning objectives, like Bloom's taxonomy, are often not enough to move the needle in how our students think critically. Intentionality begins with the instructor making a commitment to teaching students what critical thinking is, how it works, and expectations for demonstration and mastery. For each of us, what that looks like will vary. Take a short pause now and consider how you may be intentional in your practice of explicit critical thinking instruction. Answer the following questions. Have you provided your students with a definition of critical thinking? Have you included grading and rubric descriptions of critical thinking? Have you evaluated your course for critical thinking development? Clarity. How great would the world be if all things were clear from the beginning? In critical thinking instruction, we must focus on being clear with our expectations. Again, consider your question prompts from the intentionality slide. Can you describe with clarity your definition of critical thinking? The standards that represent mastery. Our students are not mind readers, and while some vagueness can influence critical thinking, it does not help to support the clarity that students need in order to fully embrace critical thinking instruction, especially at the onset. This is probably a personal favorite, consistency. As Gladwell proposed, 10,000 hours of practice to reach mastery may be a stretch and unachievable, but there is some truth there. The quality of instruction so that we provide our students with the best foundation far exceeds the quantity. 20 hours of bad instruction won't get me near as far as 3 hours of great instruction. I'm sure you each have examples of bad teaching getting you nowhere. And so, if we cannot have students for 10,000 hours, and for undergraduate education, the 120 hours is not even close, we have to create consistent, high-quality instruction just to get close to helping our students become better critical thinkers. For the next few slides, we will focus on strategies and standards. An additional book that you may find useful is BEYER's Strategies for the Teaching of Thinking. The key content of the book is summarized in this module. In 1987, BEYER published a book that encouraged teaching practices that focused on what he called crucial thinking skills. As instructors, we begin to see where our own instruction hits and misses these important steps. The framework covers 6 key steps that promote independent, autonomous thinking. The general sense in the model is that we provide students with an introduction or overview of the material or skill. In this case, our expectations of critical thinking. Then, we slowly guide them through challenges, encouraging the practice of the 6 skills identified by Facioni. We place emphasis on Facioni at this time because the skills are very intentional and tangible. This can be opportunities to practice during class lecture or small group discussions. And it doesn't have to be all 6 all of the time. Select those that complement the intent of the lesson or class objectives. Once students are provided feedback about their practice, they are challenged with independent application. If this is to be demonstrated in an assignment, again, reinforce clarity and expectation. Consistency is seen as students move through transfer and elaboration. For example, you used this skill in this way last week. What happens when you apply that skill to this new scenario or situation? Again, as the model completes those 6 stages, students are prepared more and more for increasing autonomy in the use of their critical thinking skills. Right now, you're probably asking yourself this question. It's a great question. One key element that makes higher education challenging is that basically everything we have to offer students in the way of content is available online. So where does that leave our expertise? We have to teach our students to discern quality information versus just information. By practicing critical thinking in every class, students begin to appreciate the nuances and subtleties of concepts that we teach. It's not about teaching them concepts. It's about teaching them how to think about the concepts. So each class takes on a unique philosophy about how to think about core concepts and principles. All instruction and assignments should reinforce students' ability to use the elements of thought. Use this as you begin to plan your instruction, ensuring that you include questions, prompts, and examples that elicit each element. Remember that each assignment or concept may not use all the elements, but as students gain complexity of thought related to a concept, they should be able to address more elements with more of the intellectual standards discussed next. In the Critical Thinking Competency Standards book, Elder illustrates the value of using standards to assess and evaluate critical thinking. This tool provides a mean for determining the quality of thinking that is taking place. Even within Fascione's skills, how can we measure the quality of inferences being made? How do we know if a student's analysis is on track? Through these standards, we can begin to see growth and change in how students think critically. Pause here and read through the descriptions on page 49. Begin to consider how you would incorporate these standards into your scenario. As our students grow in their ability to think critically, they will begin to demonstrate certain traits or characteristics. These become outcomes, traits that through consistent and clear direction can be developed as a result of the use of elements of thought based on the 8 universal standards of thought. In the development of your scenarios, remember that you have to focus on the skills of critical thinking reflected through the application of the universal standards to the elements of thought for the purpose of developing intellectual traits. There are some other key considerations, though. The goal is not to overemphasize technical content. Provide resources that students may seek using their new skills. Consider the idea of creating experiences, not covering material, and reflect again on your own critical thinking style and the influence that has on your comfort and ability to teach for critical thinking. For this challenge, let's begin by using what you already have. Ask one of your team members to review your syllabus and possibly an assignment. Where are the natural areas that you can incorporate more critical thinking? Which strategy are you most comfortable using and complements your instructional goals? Use this as a starting place to think about how your scenario may use one of these new critical thinking instructional strategies. Lastly, start easy. Select one assignment or lesson that you can reframe for critical thinking. Even consider creating a scenario using these strategies that you could use in your course. This will help develop your comfort with moving forward into the scenario you will create through this project. As you move forward, don't forget to be intentional, be clear, and be consistent. Great work! The next module will begin to prepare you for specific instructional design.